Guys, I got a good one for y'all today. So we are going to show you how to use 9-inch Ford parts on literally any type of rear end housing to set it up for racing. You guys are not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned. So to kick this one off, we're going to have to address the elephant in the room right off the bat. So whether you are a Ford person or not, the 9-inch Ford is pretty much king when it comes to high performance differentials. So whether you got a race car or a real fast street car, this is going to be a video you guys are going to watch because I'm actually going to be showing you how you can use 9-inch Ford parts, not on a 9-inch Ford. So example, we are going to be taking the Trailblazer SS today, and these things from the factory, they actually came with a 14 bolt, very, very similar to the 14 bolt that's in the Silverado SSs. Now guys, even though we're doing a 14 bolt in this video, this is gonna work on 10 bolts, 12 bolts, it literally doesn't matter. So let's go ahead, let's get this thing raised up in the air, and let me show you what we did here. So to all the new subscribers that have been joining us, if you don't know, we have got a whole playlist of Trailblazer SS stuff. So after this video, definitely check it out. We've got a lot of videos on this thing. And then also, if you guys want to know how I'm running an affordable 5-lug conversion, as well as a lighter weight brake setup, but using OEM parts from another vehicle, drop a comment down below. Been actually thinking about doing a video on my front setup. But you guys have came to see the back, and I wanted to talk to you guys about why I did this and all the advantages. So what I'm going to show you is actually going to be how to run a 5-lug conversion from the factory 6. You're going to be saving weight. You're also going to be adding a lot of safety. And of course, in this setup, you can't even run a 15-inch rim on these things in factory form. It's just way too much brake. So going to this setup, it's actually allowed us to run basically my favorite drag racing wheels ever, and that is Weld Illumistars. And of course, I've customized these a little bit. We've gone ahead and we've anodized the barrels black here. But guys, this is actually a 15 by 10 Weld Illumistar with 5-inch backspace. So at the same time we did all this conversion stuff, I also narrowed up my rear end 3 inches on each side. So from the factory, typically these things on a 10-inch wide wheel, you run like 7 inches of backspacing. Well, my rim is 15 by 10 with 5 inches of backspacing, so that's 2 inches narrower. And then with the extra inch of narrowing this, what I've done is I've effectively kind of brought my wheel in just a little bit to kind of give it that tucked look that I absolutely love. Not gonna lie though, guys, she gets a little bit close with the slicks there, but that's okay. I freaking love the look. So you kind of see what kind of rim setup we're running. Let me show you the rear end housing. So the 14 bolts that they put in these things, very similar to a rear-wheel drive Silverado SS 14 bolt. And I guess cliff notes from like right here to about right here. This actual whole diff is all factory, other than the aftermarket diff cover that we bolted on. But inside here, it's a factory 410 gear. Just so happens to be the gear ratio that we need right now. And then also the factory carrier. So we're like the 9-inch hybrid stuff starts kicking in is going to be the last couple inches of the axle here. So if you want to run a factory track with rear end, basically when you cut the old housing ends off, you're going to just be leaving more axle tube. If you want to narrow it up, you're going to be cutting more axle tube off. So you're going to have to do a little bit of math in the beginning just to figure out where that cut line needs to be. But once you've pretty much identified that, at that point, you're going to be cutting that old housing end off and then welding on a 9-inch Ford housing end. So this is what they call like the large Ford or the big Ford housing end. And we are using the Strange Engineering housing end. I think the part number is a H1137 if I remember right. Basically a 3/8 bolt hole, holds the large Ford bearing, and we've TIG welded that on. And if you don't know, the housing end determines what brake setup that you run. And this is kind of one of the beauties of a 9-inch setup is everybody makes 9-inch brakes. And if you're on a budget, you can run like a factory disc brake 9-inch setup. Or if you got a little bit more money to work with, you can run something like this here. So this is a Willwood. This is more like a street brake. You know, it's a vented rotor and all that. But Willwood makes a nice 9-inch Ford brake setup. TBM makes a really nice 9-inch brake setup. Strange Engineering makes a 9-inch brake setup. A lot of people do. And if you need to run a parking brake, I mean, there's even options to do that, either internal or with a external little small caliper here. But now that we've kind of gone over the housing end that you need and then whatever brake setup's going to work for you, kind of the last link to all this is axles. And on my axles, we're running, you know, Moser custom axles. And if you've never ordered axles before, basically what you got is you've got a worksheet where they're going to be asking some dimensions, things like bolt pattern and whatnot. So on my axles, basically everything from here out is all 9-inch stuff. And then everything here internally is 14-bolt stuff. So out here, you've got, you know, factory 9-inch axle offset, which axle offset is from like the face of the axle flange to the face of the housing end. So that's all kind of like basic industry standard 9-inch Ford stuff out here. And internally, we're running the spline for a 14-bolt. So like if you're running a 12-bolt, obviously you can go to that setup. Or if you're running like a aftermarket carrier with a higher spline count, you can run that setup instead. But that's kind of the beauty of aftermarket axles, is you can kind of hybrid this thing, and this end of the axle can be one thing and this end of the axle can be something else. Running this 9-inch bearing in allows us to do that. So doing this, we've dropped some weight, we've increased the strength, and something else that I also really like about this setup is from the factory, a lot of housings, you know, this one included, comes from the factory with C-clips. And what you've got is on the factory housing end, the bearing's pressed in, and then the axle just slides into the housing, and it's just held in with the C-clip in the carrier. Well, the problem with that is if this axle breaks anywhere, the wheel and tire and everything could come off, rip the brakes off. It could rip the bumper off, mess up the quarter panel. You may have seen that in the past. So with a 9-inch Ford setup, it's actually a completely different setup. So the axle bearing is actually pressed on the axle. And as that whole assembly goes in together, the caliper bracket sandwiches that bearing assembly. So if you break an axle basically anywhere from here to here, it's still going to hopefully hold the wheel in and not come off the vehicle and tear stuff up. You know, the car, if you're drag racing, it may like dart one way or the other. But if you break something internally in here, at least the wheel will stay on the vehicle. So huge safety thing that I also is another reason why I did this. And if y'all have any questions about any of this, do me a favor, simply drop a comment down below. I try and answer every single question that you guys comment on. And maybe you guys were thinking about doing something similar but didn't quite know how to go about it. I'm hoping this video here kind of answers that. Again, guys, whether you're doing a factory track with, a narrowed setup, a 14-bolt, a 10-bolt, a 12-bolt, does not matter. Basically, the procedure that we've done here and the parts we use, pretty much all the same. So one thing you do need to check, you need to make sure you got the right axle tube diameter for the housing ends that you're ordering. But other than that, guys, it's pretty much it. It's a little bit of math, a little bit of custom stuff, but at the end of the day, it works out really good. As always, we really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next one.